thank you very much, Dr. Zaroor. You are the first guest of our Global Newsline program called Short Circuit, and I am Nadeem Iqbal. I invited you to talk about the event which are going on, and also before that, maybe and speculate and do some analysis what's going to happen maybe in near future. Just want to introduce Dr. Zaroor. Dr. Fazal Zaroor is a professor at NC State of Political Science and author of a book, Varying Views of Democracy Among Iraqi Citizens, 2005 to 2018. It is published on Amazon, and the link is in the description of the video of JNL YouTube channel if you're interested to buy a copy. And if you introduce yourself, Dr. Zaroor.
Sure. Thanks, Brother Nadeem. Good to see you. Khadr Zaroor, NC State, North Carolina State University. I've been teaching for 25 years. My areas of interest are international security, American foreign policy, and the greater Middle East, which is a big stretch of real estate from Central Asia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, all the way to West Africa to the Sahel region, Mauritania and Morocco. So my area of interest, again, is security, international security, global security, transnational crime / terrorism, and American foreign policy, how America deals with the rest of the world. That's my area of interest and concerns and my studies.
Very well, Dr. Zaroor. So you probably are the best person to talk about what's going on today in the world. And you know that what is happening politically, particularly in Middle East. So the first thing that I would like to talk to you about, the world peace actually is at risk. What is happening in between Israel and Iran? Could you please throw some light what is happening there and why it is happening, and how did we reach to this point that they have been fighting each other for last over 2 weeks?
Sure. Thanks for having me. And I'm not sure if I'm the best person to be here, but thank you for having me. Nonetheless, I do have in my own points of view about this. Certainly, this war was in the making since the 1990s. There was a document written back in 1994, 1995 in Washington called The American Century. Dick Cheney, Rumsfeld, Wolfowitz, and certainly the Bush administration later on took that into their new vision of the world. And Mr. Netanyahu and the right-wing Zionists certainly adopted that idea that we will team up with the United States after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and we want to control really a couple of things. Number one is energy sources, and we need to control a choke of points in the world. The Strait of Gibraltar, we want to control the Strait of Hormuz, Bab el-Mandeb, the Suez Canal. Those should be under US/Israeli control to dominate world economics in the future. Knowing that China is rising, India is rising, and they need that region for economic development of Southeast Asia, certainly China. So the Chinese are aware of that. Middle Eastern countries have been aware of that. We had the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, the second Gulf War is really about this, about the American century, especially 2003 occupation and invasion of Iraq. So this goes back to the 1990s, knowing that there was a rising China, but not a giant yet, not a major power to compete with the United States. The United States from 1989, 1990 until 2017, maybe 18, where the United States dominated world politics. We call that unipolar power or unipolar polarity, where the United States totally dominates. NATO has, is part of this, but they take a second seat or a back seat in international politics, and they're struggling. They don't know whether they should align themselves with Russia or with China. They are divided or keep their identity linked to the United States or not. So there's a fragmentation. There is a collapse of that system, even though Mr. Trump is headed as we speak to the NATO summit, which starts, I think, tomorrow or the next day. So he's on his way now, crossing the Atlantic Ocean as we speak, trying to keep that NATO alliance together. What is happening in Iran, who is going to dominate that region? Would it be China? Would it be China? Of course, China is the best ally China has in Asia, or really in the world, is Pakistan. And there is a reason for that because India was rising. India began to align itself, especially under Prime Minister Modi, to align himself with Netanyahu. That alliances really start taking off in May when India began to really decided to attack Pakistan. And that was counterproductive move, but it's a coordinated attack by the
Mhm.
Israeli intelligence and India's intelligence. And of course, the only Muslim country in the world to have or to possess nuclear weapons is Pakistan. And they want to undermine that. I'm sure you had a question before I continue. Sorry, I think you were saying
Right.
something.
That's okay. Just I wanted to, interrupt. So what you're saying that the American century, I think this is what you're referring to the document. Have they made a mistake not calculating the entry of China and maybe Russia coming back?
Well, China in 1990s was again collapsing. In 1994 or 1991 to 1995, 1996, Yugoslavia was a pro-Russian state and it was fragmenting. The United States began to manipulate those powers, gave Kosovo independence,
Mhm.
Macedonia, Bosnia. They protected Bosnia, which is fine. But Russia could not protect Serbia from American attack, or NATO was a NATO war against Serbia. And Russia was so weak, they could not really stop the United States and NATO from attacking
Mhm.
Serbia, if you remember, which led to the independence of Kosovo and Macedonia thereafter.
Well, another blunder that, in my opinion, the U.S. did is the getting involved with the Afghanistan for 20 years and ultimately losing what $1 trillion and giving the country back to
Taliban.
Taliban again.
And what they left about 85 billion dollars worth of weapons. I think Mr. Trump, when he came to the White House in January, he said he wants the Taliban to return those weapons. Of course,
Mhm.
they're not gonna be returning those weapons anytime
Mhm.
soon. So it's a miscalculation. It's a miscalculation. The U.S. foreign policy process, they don't have the same level of thinking or the deep thinking of other world issues that's going on. They want to control, but they are not certain how to control. They don't understand local politics or the geopolitical realignment that's going on. India and Israel realize that, oh, maybe the United States is not a reliable partner. Let's team up. So Israel will attack Iran, India will attack Pakistan, weaken that region, dominating, from the borders of China all the way
Mhm.
to Morocco. And that's not going to happen anytime because now India has lost face. India, even though they have a growing economy, growing, militarily, but those five planes that were shot down by the Pakistani Air Force, that's the big
Yeah,
embarrassment
we
for.
will hold on to this thought for maybe another session.
Yeah, sure,
I
sure.
just want to inject few things that maybe this conflict that happened recently between India and Pakistan, maybe it was just a test. And this is my opinion that to test where the Pakistan is standing. And
Right.
I think in next 90 days, there may be something happening that we can only speculate, but we can talk about it later. So I want to come back to situation in Middle East. Before the Iran and Israel conflict, Israel actually attacked Iran to start the conflict, while it was already involved in fighting many other countries, surrounding countries. Plus, they have a blame from ICC and the International Court of Justice about genocide. Netanyahu is a many cabinet member. So where the Palestinians are going to stand, even if we have peace between Iran and Israel right now, who's going to take care of the Palestinian women and children? Over 60,000 people have been killed over there. Is there any resolution in horizon near future for their solution?
Yeah. This is the $1 million question. It's been since 1948. And this genocide did not start, 2 years ago. It started, from 1948, and it continues. The Palestinians are divided, so that's a weakness. They hope that the international community will help, step in and help to kind of develop a Palestinian state, even though it's fragmented, and the Israelis will not allow that to happen. But eventually, the Israelis will have to come to the realization that Palestinian state must exist
Yeah.
on a
So
Palestinian.
I want to check on that part.
Sure.
That do you think really two-state solution is a real solution. Because as far as I remember, in last 50, 60 years that I've read history, uh, last 600 plus years from Saladin to Turkish Empire, that area was open to all three main religious followers. And they were living in peace for 600 years, as far as I know. And there has never been a fighting or on conflicting situation like we see today. You think one state solution is the answer to this? And at least for the city of Jerusalem, which is sacred for all these three religious followers.
Right. Yeah, anytime you have one major power dominating the Middle East, then you have peace. We had that during the Hellenistic Greeks, we had that under the Romans, we had that under the Arabs, we had that under the Ottomans, under the Persians. So when you implant a group of people who have no ties to the Middle East, you are bound to have contentious politics, and of course, later on, that will turn into violence. That's what we have. The current occupiers of Palestinian lands are not really, they're not returning back to the Holy Land as mandated as they claim by the Creator. The three religions live that peacefully. Again, goes to Omar ibn al-Khattab when he basically had an agreement called the Omar Agreement with the Byzantine Empire and Orthodox Church. And by the way, the key to the Holy Sepulchre, which is the holiest church in Christendom, it's controlled by the Muslim families until today. For 1,000 years, the Muslims control it. They opened the church up because Muslims had, and Christians had local Christians, not European Christians. They always had this agreement of respect. They tolerated one another. They prayed together. They married, intermarried. But now, when you have a foreign identity forced upon the local people, you are going to have tension. And the Palestinian Christians have been almost completely wiped out from the Holy Land. And the international community has been silent on that.
Yeah, some people compare that kind of an occupation type of thing, what happened in Australia and in USA, when in USA actually 140 million Native American are eliminated in pretty much every truce that they have made with those original people were broken over here. So I'm seeing the same pattern over there. Is this the thing that we are looking into another occupation of people of Europe, like what happened in Australia and in USA?
Well, the indigenous people in, of course, the Americas, North and South America, and certainly Australia and New Zealand have suffered because of the occupation. The British at that time, who became later on Australians and Americans, they had the upper hand because they brought a new wave of immigrants to settle the land. The Israelis have a problem. They have a demographic problem. Okay, their numbers are dwindling. A lot of people are leaving the Holy Land, going back to Europe or North America, whereas the Palestinians have the upper hand demographically. They have more people on the ground, they more birth rate, and they have more alliances, even from Jewish groups or American groups or non-Arab countries. They have a lot of alliances coming together. The future generations, young folks in America, at least in Europe, are looking to the Palestinian cause as not only Palestinian cause, it's a human rights cause. It's a human rights cause, and they are really hearing the call to stand up and fight for justice and of course, peace. So next generations will be the next leaders in the world. And it's those that will reverse that. There is no two-state solution anymore now as a peaceful coexistence because so much bloodshed has been, shed in the Holy Land. It's not a possibility at this time to do that. So I think one state solution, it's not going to be good for the Israelis because Israel cannot be Jewish and cannot be democratic. So if you make it exclusive for Jews, you have Christian Israelis, you have non-believers in Israel. How do you include them? And you cannot be democratic because you treat everyone else as a second-class citizen. Even within the Jewish community, you have Western European Jews looking down on Ethiopian Jews and Arab Jews and Asian Jews. So this you cannot have democratic Israel or you're gonna have a Jewish Israel.
Right.
And
so let me come to last night truce. What happened between Iran and Israel, and our President Trump is taking all the credit for peace, and I think he's contesting also to get the Nobel Prize, Peace Nobel Prize. What is your opinion? This truth is going to last longer than a couple of days?
Unfortunately, I don't sit on a Nobel Peace Prize committee, so I don't really know what they're thinking. Are not very good, just because you cannot bomb your way out and you cannot starve people in as a policy and still consider yourself to be a recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. That's my taking. But I do commend the president's leadership, what he did the last couple of days after the bombing. I think pushing the Israelis, and he was fair. I think in his statements, he was fair, he was honest, he was transparent for the first time in years. We've seen American president taking the lead. And he was not happy with Netanyahu. He was not happy with the Israeli government. And he spoke publicly about it. We haven't seen that from an American president.
This is what I was going to say. That the first time actually I heard in 40 years I'm here.
Yeah, so that's good. I mean, George Bush Sr. did say that when the Israelis refused to make peace and they wanted to join the coalition to attack Iraq, and Bush Sr. said no. Okay, you cannot.
But the main media over here in USA is still thinking around and blaming Iran again. So what's going on with the main media? They don't get this thing?
Well, the media in America, really North America and Europe, are not democratic. They are being, what's the word? Trying to cave in to certain agenda. It's reporting inappropriate, inaccurate, and definitely one-sided. That's why I don't watch American media. I don't watch European media because they are skewed to one side or the other, and that's why I don't give them credibility at all. But in my case, I've seen the president going again out of the comfort zone to speak publicly. He was not happy with Iran. He was not happy with Israel. This war cannot go on. I think the bombing of Iran, not to really end the war, but to save Israel, because Israel doesn't have the manpower or the human power to continue this war.
All of these things actually are coming from the conflict in Palestine, right?
Absolutely.
What is happening? So my last thing will be, and your last word I will be looking for, that if you look from Caliph Omar time, when he took over the control of Jerusalem, first thing he did, he invited all the Jews back to Jerusalem. Same thing Saladin did. And whenever the Templar took over and the Romans took over, they expelled Jews and Muslim both. Do you think we can see again this kind of forgiveness and togetherness ever?
Well, under the current state of affairs, I don't think so. Just because the right-wing Israelis don't want to stop with Palestine. They want to take over from the Nile to the Euphrates. So half of Egypt, they believe it belongs
and
to them.
And they may be successful in doing that, right?
Well, they already silenced Egypt. It has been silent, where you have a genocide going on your own borders and you do nothing. They occupied one of the gates between Egypt and Israel, and Egypt did nothing about it. They complained a little bit, but they have been silent. And they want to continue to northern Iraq. They want to take over Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. They believe this is the vision they have as Greater Israel. James Baker in 1991, during the peace process, Oslo peace process, he told the Israelis, give up that agenda, a Greater Israel, forget about it. You're lucky to have what you have, because they wanted to have this Iron Dome, and the US helped build the Iron Dome, or even finance the Iron Dome. But the Iron Dome will not protect you, as he said, from missiles from Iraq, 1990, 1991.
This is what we see actually is happening now.
Absolutely. And he told them that 35 years ago, forget that. It's not going to happen.
Right.
And
so it's false security that they are living in, actually, all the Israelis. And I'm sorry really for them that their leader actually is taking into a war, which they cannot win, I believe.
I mean, for Mr. Netanyahu and his company, it's a personal vendetta. They want to stay in power as long as it takes. They have this vision.
They want to be remembered as David.
Yeah, exactly. The new David for the Israeli people. But I don't think many people realize that he's undermining Israeli security. Israel had the chance in 2002 when the Saudi Arabian.
And he has so many corruption cases also going on, so maybe he's trying to avoid that. Right.
Exactly.
So we are running out of time over here, Dr. Zaroor. Really, I appreciate for your coming and join me in this first episode of Short Circuit. I gave this name Short Circuit, so anybody here can express themselves very clearly, and we can all have a heated up discussion, and it's not a issue over here. So I really appreciate it, and there are so many things to talk about, and maybe we can get together later on to have some specific things and maybe elaborate on that. Really
Sure.
appreciate it from Global Newsline
Thanks for
and
having
from
me.
Short Circuit. Thank you, appreciate it.
Bye bye.